Hello, welcome to Miss Peepers Reading Corner. I'm Katrina, aka Miss Peepers. Let's talk about survival. Today we're discussing Tricks by Ellen Hopkins. Oh my goodness, that is the shiniest. You can't see that, can you? I did not realize how poorly that was going to show up on video, so I'll put a picture of the cover here. Excellent cover design, but not great for making a video. In this book, 5 teenagers from 5 very different backgrounds all find their way to Las Vegas and for various reasons find themselves turning towards sex work. This book, which is written in verse, explores the devastating and disturbing world of teenage prostitution, and it breaks down societal assumptions about what brings a person to that kind of life. This book was number 5 on the list of the top 10 books banned and challenged last year, and actually Ellen Hopkins is on that list twice. We'll talk about her book Crank in a different video. And given the summary, it probably will not surprise anyone why this book was banned or has been banned and has been challenged, because it is written with a young adult audience in mind, but it does talk about sex, it talks about prostitution, it talks about rape, it talks about drug use, alcoholism, and it is a challenging book to read, not because of the writing, of course, but because of the content. And so while I'm going to recommend this book, I do encourage people, even more than usual, to check content warnings. If you prefer to avoid any of those topics for whatever reason you have, please look after yourself and your mental health. But with that disclaimer, I do recommend this book. That it is beautifully written. And I will say, I am not a big poetry person. If you've been watching my channel, you've noticed I never talk about poetry. It's not that I'm anti-poetry per se, but I think I've been a little bit traumatized by the public school system. I definitely welcome additional recommendations of poetry if you have suggestions for people who are a little bit intimidated like me, because I am a little bit intimidated by poetry. This book is written in very accessible language, however, and I think for me one of the indicators of just an excellent book is that while there are 5 points of view, I felt for every character, even when they made bad choices, even when they did the wrong thing. I couldn't help but be engaged in their stories and empathize with the situations that they were in. Some of their own doing and many not. And I'd love to read part of a poem because I don't want to give spoilers for the end of this book, because I think part of the power of this book is wondering what's going to happen to each of these teenagers. Will they be okay? Will they get out? And I don't want to ruin that for anybody. So I'm going to read part of one of the poems in which one of the characters is thinking about the concept of evil and the concept of hell that comes from religion. Hell isn't some fiery pit down there. It's right here on earth, in every dirty city, every yawning town, every glittery resort, and every naked stretch of desert where someone's life somersaults out of control. Satan, evil, doesn't have horns or poke you with a pitchfork. His power doesn't come from full moon sacrifices, and he doesn't go out looking for new recruits. He doesn't have to. All he has to do is wait. That is so powerful to me. And I want to be clear that Hopkins never gives any of the characters a 100% pass. I think by telling these 5 different stories and these 5 different paths towards ultimately the same place, Hopkins beautifully shows how the path to prostitution is a very nuanced one. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but I will say that the societal view of sex work is either highly romanticized, like a la Pretty Woman, or completely denigrated, and there's no in between. And most people who are involved in this didn't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to sell myself. Like, that's not how that works. People are pushed into situations where they feel like they don't have a choice, and their goal is ultimately survival. Sometimes someone is forcing them to do it. Sometimes they see that option as a lifeline to pull themselves out of a different situation. But either way, there is nothing glamorous about this lifestyle. And in her afterword, Hopkins talks about how the spark of this story came from a statistic she came across, that the average age of sex workers is 12 years old. I didn't know that before I read this book. That is just sickening. No one at that age is choosing to be there. And while the causes of that statistic are not the focus of this particular book, throughout these pages we are constantly reminded how young these characters are. How even though they act like adults, it's a facade. And the last thing I'll say here is this is a pretty chunky book. It's, gosh, 600, my edition is 650 pages, but don't let that scare you. It's actually a pretty quick read. Because it is in verse, it's not the same as reading a prose novel of this size. And while certainly you'll want to give the verse some space when you're reading it, it does flow very naturally and very smoothly from one page to the next. But this is definitely one that I expect to stick with me. So let me know, have you read Tricks or anything else by Ellen Hopkins? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. I'm definitely interested. I am really intrigued by this author now. Either way, please keep reading. Please keep reading. And I will see you in the next one.